So we've got absolutely enormous World Eaters official reveals today, a full breakdown of the Blood Tithe, a new Legion trait, a crazy new rule for Khorne Berzerkers, and a whole load of clarifications to World Eaters datasheets. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking World Eaters, and Games Workshop has dropped us a rather hefty preview of rules located behind the Warhammer Plus paywall on their battle report. The battle report that they published there basically had World Eaters versus Grey Knights, and as they went along they flashed up a whole load of specific rules from the World Eaters Codex, and it actually looks like it's been a sizable chunk of the Codex previewed. In summary, we've got the rules for the Blood Tithe and a bunch of the different abilities that you can use with it, the new Legion trait Relentless Rage, a powerful moves when they get shot rule for the Khorne Berzerkers, that one's called Blood Surge, a few more rules for Angron, including a reroll hits ability that he has, a few more hints at the Eightbound rules, 7 different stratagems, and a few other miscellaneous bits and bobs. For the most part, it seems to confirm a whole bunch of the leaked things that we've been getting up to now, so it does look like those rumours were very accurate. And I'd guess if Games Workshop's actually showing off the World Eaters in their battle report, we're probably not too far off the whole book coming out. Let's talk through all the new rules though, starting with that massive Blood Tithe. So Blood Tithe is now confirmed as the Pure Army special rule for World Eaters. It's the one that you get if you're entirely World Eaters plus any Agents of Chaos that you're allowed to bring. It does seem to function as was leaked. You score Blood Tithe points in 3 different ways, though it is quite useful to see the fine text of that, as it gives you a bit of clarification as to how it's scored. First up, you just straight up get 1 Blood Tithe point for each unit destroyed, whether they're friend or foe. Certainly fits in with the mantra that Khorne cares not from where the blood flows. And then on top of that, you get an extra Blood Tithe point per phase if at least 1 character, monster or vehicle was killed. So say if the enemy gunned down your Rhino, I guess that'll mean that you get 2 Blood Tithe points in the enemy's turn. And on top of that, you get an extra Blood Tithe points per phase if at least 1 Titanic unit was killed. In theory, I guess if all you did in one turn was kill an enemy Imperial Knight or something, that'll mean that you get 3 Blood Tithe points for that. Overall, they do seem at least fairly easy to get the ball rolling on those. It looks like even if you just lose a few units to shooting fairly early on, then you're going to start being able to rack up those points and trigger benefits. I'd guess that it means that there might be a bit of incentive to taking a bunch of small chaff units along, maybe cheap things like small units of Chaos Spawn perhaps. It doesn't look like there's any sort of exceptions to small units not triggering this. Then when you've racked up the Blood Tithe points, you then get to spend them on the benefits that appear to trigger at the end of any phase. In the battle report, they specifically use one at the end of a movement phase, for example, so it does mean that you can be a bit reactive to what the enemy wants to do, say for example manifesting a Feel No Pain 1 before the enemy starts to do damage. Once the abilities are in effect, they seem to take effect all game long. Besides the conspicuous Angron one, none of them are just 1 turn or anything. Running through them in order, for 2 Blood Tithe points you get a 5+ save against mortal wounds, really quite easy to unlock that one if you're playing Grey Knights or Thousand Suns. For 3 Blood Tithe points you can get a +1 to charge, handy enough for a melee army, particularly for things coming out of Strategic Reserve or things I guess. For 4 Blood Tithe points you get an army-wide 6+ Feel No Pain, a little durability boost, doesn't hurt. Also for 4 you could get extra AP in melee by -1, helpful against some armies, particularly power armoured types. For 5 Blood Tithe points, you can get 6s to hit, gain an extra hit in melee. That's going to be a flat damage buff against just about anything. And finally, the big, scary, intimidating one is that for 6 Blood Tithe points, you get to resurrect Angron, and he comes in from normal deep strike in your turn with 8 wounds remaining. This was used to fairly painful effect in their battle report. They killed him turn 1, then he popped up again, then they killed him again, then he popped up again. Does mean that there's going to be limited value in actually killing Angron if it's just going to come straight back, and it's just going to make him a massive pain to deal with whenever you're fighting him, as you also can't really afford to ignore him either, as he moves 16 inches and gets some insane melee damage. If he really is 360 points, then it does seem to be very easy to keep on resurrecting him. Seems like he's going to be hard to pass up in a World Eater's army. Overall, seems like a very strong ability. I feel like for the points that they cost, they seem to have balanced this table at least fairly well in terms of which ones you might want the most. The 5+ Feel No Pain against mortal wounds does seem pretty auto-include if your enemy's got lots of them, but otherwise the damage and durability ones just look like ones that you can start acquiring as the game goes on. It really does depend on what enemy you're fighting as to whether the extra AP or the 6s to hit exploding would be better. If it really just is easy to farm them up with a bunch of sacrificial spawn or something, then that does seem like it could be a very good way to go for World Eaters. Just invest a few points in some minimum size units, and hopefully that's 3 walking Blood Tithe points right there, never mind if they actually kill anything themselves. It will have a bit of an element of starting out weaker though and getting stronger as the game goes on. As a few people have mentioned before, it does seem like it might have a bit of a snowball effect, that if you start winning early on, you'll start winning harder later. Next up, we've got the reincarnation of the World Eater's Legion trait, which is apparently now called Relentless Rage. This one is confirmation of the upgraded one that was leaked. Previously, World Eaters used to be just +1 attack on the charge, then it was upgraded in White Dwarf to when they got to charge, were charged or made a heroic intervention, and then in the Codex it looks like they also gain a +1 strength as well, which will be pretty helpful for certain units. I guess it'll be probably pretty helpful with the Berserkers with their mid-strength attacks. It does depend on the target that they're fighting against. Sometimes it's just not going to make any difference compared with that extra attack. In any case, a nice upgrade. Certainly doubles down on them being a raw combat power army to fear. Next up is confirmation of another leaked rule, and it's a leaked rule that I was really quite eager to see the fine details of. It's called Blood Surge for the Khorne Berzerkers. It looks like it's a datasheet specific rule, I don't think it's an army-wide one, and it triggers whenever a Khorne Berzerkers unit takes casualties from a shooting attack. It's not just hits or anything, one of them at least has to die. The rules very much got the feel of the old Black Templars rule, Righteous Zeal, from many editions ago. Basically, when your model dies, the squad gets angry and then moves closer towards the enemy, right in the enemy turn, which can be quite disruptive or set you up for closer charges next time. The way they do it is by making a Blood Surge move after the enemy unit has finished resolving its shooting attack. The thing is at least reasonably restrictive. When you make the move, you roll a dice, and then you move that many inches towards the closest unit to your squad. That's probably a sensible restriction, as it means that you're going to have to make a beeline for the enemy, and not do anything too gamey like try and sidestep them and just move a little bit closer, but mainly try and move sideways and move out of line of sight. It looks like you're rushing just headlong at the enemy. I don't know if there's going to be some slightly more in-depth rules than the ones that they previewed. I do kind of wonder what happens if multiple models are closer to different units. That certainly could be the case in a big 10-man unit or something. Though it does look like they previewed the whole rule. Perhaps the single scariest thing is that you absolutely can use this to enter into engagement range with the enemy unit, though they do stipulate that it has to be the only one that's the closest unit. You can't use it to branch out and hit another one. I guess that means that you could potentially prevent an enemy unit by charging, by just blood surging into them, and if it happens during the enemy's turn, they'd be striking first with any of their charging units, then it'd be the World Eaters player that gets to select the next one, so potentially the blood surge unit might be hitting before the enemy that they just blood surged into. I guess it means that if you're about to charge a World Eaters unit and you happen to be within 6 inches of them, you probably want to not shoot that unit, so at least you get to strike first. Overall, this does look pretty terrifying. I guess it does help out with the Khorne Berzerkers problem that their usual issue is not being able to get into combat. I guess it won't help them live any longer, particularly as they don't have Armour of Contempt anymore. But the mind games of having a unit that's going to get closer each time you shoot them but fail to kill them outright, that is quite scary. There are a couple of other restrictions on it as well. It cancels any actions that the unit might be doing. That seems obvious enough, seeing as they're moving, I suppose. And you also can't use it when you've just disembarked from a destroyed transport as well. Again, probably sensible enough to avoid doing gamey things with getting out of a transport vehicle. It really does seem pretty intimidating for enemies trying to deal with Khorne Berzerkers in their midst with guns. If you're shooting into a unit, you probably want to do it with something that's really big and threatening, as if they're close to you, then they might just suddenly choose to lock you up in melee. Next up, we've got another rule for the Red Angel. Perhaps the biggest news is resurrecting Angron for 6 blood tithe points confirmed, and of course we already know most of his monstrous stats: 12 attacks in melee with D3+3 damage, or jumping up to a massive 39 attacks with the extra one if you want to go into anti-horde mode with 1 damage. It's also got that Wrathful Presence choice of 3 different auras each turn, one of which is that fairly dreaded not being able to fall back within 6 inches for any reason. The other rule that they previewed in this battle report is one called Champion of the Arena. Basically, this one is quite similar to the other Demon Primarchs. You get to choose one core or character unit within 6 inches in the command phase, and they get full re-rolls to hit both at range and in melee. I was wondering whether or not he'd get something like that, as he is a bit more of a blood-crazed butcher as opposed to any sorts of master of command, but it looks like he is equal to his peers there, and it does mean that he could be re-rolling his own hit roll with that crazy melee profile if he'd like to. When he was taking damage in the battle report as well, it did look like he doesn't have any -1 damage mechanic or anything like that, so at least he's maybe a little bit easier to kill than Mortarion or Magnus, even if it might be a touch on the futile side if he's just going to respawn. Next up, there's a couple of rules for the Eightbound. They perhaps didn't get all that much focus in the battle report action, but they did show us a couple of rules. One of them was a confirmed rule from the leaks called Blood Scent. The standard unit gets to come out of strategic reserve 1 turn earlier than you would expect, and that does mean that they can set up battle round 1. It's definitely the less powerful of the 2 rumoured rules, either that or a pre-game move, though I feel like in Arcs of Omen at least, you can put them into strategic reserve for free now, so it's maybe a little bit more meaningful than it was. they can have a go for a first turn charge, even if it's not all that likely. Otherwise, for the Exalted Eightbound, we got to see some of their melee damage, 5 attacks at AP-4 and damage 2. That presumably includes their Legion trait. I wonder if that might represent their Chain Fist style attacks. They were rumoured to have 2 different melee loadouts that you could choose between. Otherwise, in the intro bit to the battle report, it said that they've got a rule called Exalted Demonkin. I'd guess that that's the rumoured 4+ invul save, and a rule called Blood Fury, which again they hinted at, and it sounds like it's their chance of not letting enemies fall back, probably on something like a 4+, maybe similar to Warp Talons. Next up, we've got Stratagems. The World Eaters are rumoured to have 8 of them, and they've basically confirmed 7 of them that look very similar to the leaks once more. Again, it perhaps lends a lot more likelihood to the idea that they are only getting 8, a drastically cut down number of stratagems compared with most codexes, maybe Games Workshop aiming to go in a different direction for the end of 9th and the start of 10th. First up, we've got Scorn of Sorcery for a 4+2 deny psychic power, same as it was before, and always very useful against Khorne's most hated foe. For 1 CP, we've got the Icon of Wrath. This one is similar to the Khorne Demons one, where if you've got a unit with an Icon of Khorne, they get a 3d6 charge, dropping the lowest result. Perhaps particularly good if you're trying to make some slightly longer charges, like charging on an 8 or 9. For 1 CP, we've got Gory Dismemberment. A core or character unit gets 6 to wound, deal an extra mortal wound to a maximum of 6. With the fairly crazy amount of melee attacks that Khorne Berzerkers and the like can throw out, that does seem like it's really quite a nice one. Maybe particularly good if you're going to be wounding your target on a 5 or something anyway. That'll mean that a lot of your actual converted hits would also generate mortals. For 1 or 2 CP, we've got Blood Frenzy. This one's a core unit gets to fight on death this phase. 2 CP if they're not troops, like Eightbound or Terminators or something, but to unlock that for Berserkers for just 1 command point really is pretty immense. Basically means that there are units that you're not usually going to want to have to try and clear in the combat phase, otherwise they're going to drag down a lot of your forces with them. Looks like Khorne Berzerkers are just going to be all around dangerous. If you shoot them then they get closer, if you fight them in melee they've got the chance to fight on death and do damage there anyway. For 1 or 2 CP we've got Skulls for the Skull Throne. This is the one where if you kill the enemy warlord, you get the option of 2 different things, either gaining 2 more blood tithe points then and there, or getting +1 to advance and charge for the character that killed them. It's 1 CP for the one of your choice. I'd guess that the blood tithe points are probably usually going to be the better of the 2, or you can pick up both of them for 2 CP. I guess the +1 to advance and charge one might be quite meaningful for Angron, as maybe if he's respawning via Deep Strike, the +1 to charge could be pretty nice. For 2 CP, we've got Red Butchers, +1 damage for Terminators or Eightbound in melee. Simple and effective, those accursed weapons will be going to damage 2, or Terminator Power Fist to damage 3, which is quite scary. Definitely going to be worth it enough against some foes where it's going to convert to entire models killed per attack. And finally, for 1 command point, we've got Aggressive Intervention. This one applies to a core unit, and they get to heroically intervene 6 inches, so again, you can't really get too close to Khorne Berzerkers or Terminators or anything else core, say if the Eightbound got it. Overall, I think that's really not a bad set of stratagems whatsoever. Lots of those could be very, very meaningful indeed. The Psychic Denial is always helpful to have. The Mortal Wound one and Red Butchers both look like they could be used for if you do need that extra bit of damage. Access to big heroic interventions just means that the enemy is going to have to position a bit further away if they don't want to be wind up in combat. Though I'd say out of any of these, the Blood Frenzy fighting on death one might be one of the single most valuable ones. Some armies are very heavy in melee, this one is just going to massively punish them in return if they try and kill one of your scary combat units, and if you happen to have a command point or 2 free. Finally, let's just round up a few other hints and teasers from the battle report. They did confirm that the Chaos Land Raider will get the Soul Shatter las cannons. It looks like it's going to be the profile from Codex Chaos Space Marines, so should be toughness 9 as well. They did confirm that it can transport 8-bound as well, something that I would have guessed, but nice to have the confirmation. I'd guess like Possessed they're probably not going to be riding in Rhinos. They've also given us Khorne the Betrayer's melee profile. He was rolling 10 attacks at AP-4 and damage 3 supposedly. If they've got that right in the battle report, then that will be a big upgrade on his current damage 2. Just an all-round powerful melee combatant. He's going to be far better against heavy infantry and vehicles with that, just an all-round powerhouse. On top of that, his buffing rule has apparently changed to a lieutenant-style aura, a 6-inch aura re-rolling 1s to wound for core units. For the Lord on Juggernaut, he's got a rather helpful +2 inches to move aura of 6 inches. It seems that that one isn't unique to Lord Invocatus, which is quite nice. Getting an extra move buff is really quite nice for World Eaters, as their problem is often getting to combat and not how much damage they do when they get there. It seems that if Khorne Berzerkers can get into the enemy's ranks, they're going to be a massive problem even if they're not in combat with their consolidating shooting things and fight on death. and getting an extra 2 inches towards that seems handy. Finally, they also showed off one of the relics from the codex, the Berserker Glaive. This one's strength +2, AP -3 and damage 2. It replaces an Exalted Chainblade or Axe of Dismemberment. I believe that's the one off the Master of Executions, who is apparently going to be an HQ choice in the World Eaters Codex. On top of the profile, it also gets 6s to hit, cause 2 extra hits, so I guess that's usable enough as a damage boost one. If rumours are to be believed though, then World Eaters are going to come off kind of second best on the Warlord traits and relics front, with only 3 of each apparently, besides some custom Warlord traits for special characters. So overall, a pretty massive rules haul for the World Eaters there. Blood Tithe does seem pretty excellent, and at least fairly easy to access, with just units getting killed, your own or your enemy. Loads of good buffs, particularly resurrecting Angron. The Legion trait is improved as leaked. Blood Surge means that Khorne Berzerkers get to move closer to the enemy when they're shot dead, and a few other helpful hints and clarifications to stratagems and a bunch of units. Let me know what you make of them down in the comments below, and of course let me know if there's anything else that I missed in terms of duty details from the previews. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I'll certainly be aiming to cover the World Eaters Codex when we finally get it. Should be fun to go over, will be good fun to do some unit reviews as well. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page too. You can find that one linked in the video description if you're interested in helping keep these videos coming. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next for the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.